In our last video, the Seraphon launched an incredible assault on Eater of Tomes, one of Archaon's 9 Gaunt summoners, basically kicking him from the 8 points into space and then windmill slamming him down to Chaman, ultimately killing him. However, there was some unintended consequences there, or maybe they were intended but just kinda didn't think about it. It set off a massive chain reaction that saw the realm gates tied directly to that silver tower detonate as well. And here's the thing, I'm just going to slip this in there. Remember, this book is not called Broken Realms Croak. And so today, we're going to change views and follow the Dark Master and First Prince himself, Belakor. Now, the early parts of the second act, which is what we're now into with Broken Realms Belakor, starts off with a fantastic description of this character, which is lovely for those of us like myself who weren't playing in Warhammer Fantasy Battles very much. I mean, I played a little bit, but I just focused on my elves. This is a wonderful synopsis of his story, and basically, in a long time before the realms, even in a long time in the history of the old world, a single tyrant caught the eye of all 4 Chaos Gods. They all wanted him to be their champion, and he was kind of playing off of each of their strengths and what they wanted and not really bowing to any of them. They, at some point, all came together and offered him collectively a dark blessing for him to ascend to the title of Demon Prince. And he accepted it. This is basically what Archaon doesn't want to do, right? He's been playing off all of their gods, but he refuses to become a demon prince. Belakor chose differently and became the first demon prince of the undivided pantheon, and he was marching to war all over the place. He was truly a menace and a blight upon the old world. Now, at some point, he fell from grace, though no one really knows why. It could have been like a failed military event, maybe he wanted a campaign and got crushed, or some embarrassment. They're kind of leaving that vague for us on purpose. I know that there's other books and resources out there, but I think in AOS they want it to be purposefully vague on why he lost the blessings. But regardless, his punishment was to be an eternal one. Whenever the 4 Chaos Gods agreed on a champion from that point forward, Belakor would be forced to crown them Everchosen, a title that he first earned. He was the first person to get all their blessings, but he never received that title. He got the gift of becoming a Chaos God, but now he's basically a lackey or servant for them for all eternity. And many Everchosens have come and gone. Of course, the current one is Archaon. And I want to take this moment here to point out that they are very different characters. It's easy to think there's one personality type that could possibly get all 4 Chaos Gods, to give you their blessings. But the truth is, they're very different. Archaon resolves all of his issues with brutish military might. He will bring 1,000 Chaos Warriors to solve whatever problem needs solving. Whereas Belakor likes to scheme and manipulate. He brings his full might only when his enemy is at its most vulnerable. He likes machinations and plans and bringing things from the shadows and all this kinds of stuff. Archaon rejects demonhood. He doesn't want to owe a thing to anyone. Belakor accepted it, and he gained an immense amount of power and, of course, immortality. But he is bound to the will of the 4 Chaos Gods in some sense. But we learn an interesting fact because this second act starts with a little bit of a bio on Belakor, and we see that he's been stoking the fires of a grand plan for some time. You see, first, he smashed the prophetic engine of Topek's Eye, which is a Seraphon prophecy device. Basically, it allows the Slaanesh to kind of foresee events in the future, and he did that specifically so that they couldn't see what he was planning. It's a strong first move if you're trying to have a secret plan, is to get rid of the other person's telescope. Then, he went and revealed the location of the Silver Tower to the Slaanesh. He basically saw that the Slaanesh were going to want to shut down Eater of Tomes, and however he did it, he disseminated the knowledge, hey everybody, here's where this Silver Tower is, go get it. And so he set the events that we just covered earlier this week in motion. It was his minions who released Van Brecht, I don't think it's Lord Celston, but the Stormcast Eternal from Broken Realms Morathi, the kind of main character we had there. At the end of Broken Realms Morathi, the Stormcast was trapped. He was freed to go let Sigmar know about Morathi's betrayal. He was released by a servant of Belakor. And most recently, he heard about the fighting between Teclis and Nagash. The core idea here is what we're getting at is he wants everything to be as fractured and in flux as possible, so there is no resistance to him. His goal, of course, is to reclaim the title of Everchosen from Archaon and demonstrate to the Chaos Gods that he alone is worthy to lead their forces. So he wants everyone to be in a tizzy. He wants the Elven gods to be all fighting amongst themselves. Teclis and Nagash are taking each other out. Sigmar's busy with Morathi. All eyes are looking elsewhere except for on him. Which begs the question, what is Belakor's plan? Well, we get a snippet from his throne where he really kind of lays it out there and puts it together. This is Belakor kind of instructing or speaking to the demons that are bound to him specifically. Belakor wants to show the Chaos Gods how great he is and how terrible and lazy Archaon is by tearing open the veil between the mortal realms and the realm of chaos in a single swoop. It was long known that the realm gates could be destroyed. It happens tons of times in the realm gate wars and that kind of stuff. But when Nagash's Mortarchs in Broken Realms Teclis went out, they didn't just destroy the realm gates. They twisted them. It's like, okay, so they can be corrupted. Again, we already knew that. But the final piece of his puzzle came from the actions of the Seraphon. That before this, right, in the last act that we just read, it was never known that if you put enough magical power directly into a realm gate to blow it up, that you could set off a chain reaction of detonations to other gates connected to that one, essentially all across the mortal realms. So if you put all this together, you corrupt the realm gates that lead to chaos, and then you nuke them, okay, like mega nuke them, collectively hoping to make a giant tear across all of the realms. You destroy more gates, it means more chaos comes through. Effectively, the Stormcast Eternals would be cut off from Azir. In fact, all societies would. But because of the nature of chaos, and now that it's been spilled upon the realms, the Chaos Gods could deploy their demons wherever they wish. And in this way, with everyone being isolated and unable to travel and reinforce one another and chaos kind of being ascendant, they would be able to grind down the forces of order by cutting them off from one another and just sheer attrition. Now, Archaon, the Everchosen, who has up to this point been the real leader of the evil forces, I guess I'll say, he would have never gone for this plan, because he uses those realm gates to move his armies. And he's mortal, which means he needs to travel in the more traditional ways, but not Belakor. Not a demon prince. Which is great. I mean, that's a great example of how they just look at these problems differently. So Belakor gathers his followers, demons from every god branded with the mark of the first prince. And he sends one contingent over to Chamon, where all this big explosion that we talked about in the last episode happened. He's basically telling them, I want you to go there, and I want you to raise hell, right? Because this explosion just happened there, it's definitely the weakest point where the veil between reality and the realm of chaos is kind of thinnest. So go there and cause trouble. Meanwhile, Belakor himself has some housekeeping to deal with. You see, back in Wrath of the Everchosen, again, we're going way back now, he went toe-to-toe with Lady Olander and won. And he won pretty handily, I'll be honest with you. But before her banishment back to Shyish, Lady Olander had placed some sort of hex or curse on Belakor. And he feels it in his body, and so he's like, there's just something not right. And so he's planning to go to Shyish to break this connection. And his logic is, if I'm setting up a very tight series of events here, if Lady Olander comes back with a vengeance and whatever this thing that she did to me, goes into full insurgency and I get wrecked, all these plans go to waste. So let's just get rid of this lingering threat of possibility and then we'll go forward with my plan, right? Trying to leave absolutely no room for error. And so Belakor moves his personal army to Dolorum, that region where the Mortarch of Grief, Lady Olander, reigns. There's a huge fight between demons and Night Haunt, which I love the way that it's described. You have plague bearers fighting ghosts, there's black coaches crashing in through bloodletters. Banshees are screaming, but they're not doing a whole lot because demons have a bravery stat of 10, which is a joke. But what is kind of funny is that they do mention specifically that the emotions that keep demons in the realms, so like murder and anger for Khorne and sorrow and despair for Nurgle, they're replaced with grief. And so demons are sometimes like blinking out of existence because whatever emotion that fuels them is literally replaced with something else, and they just have no juice to stay in reality, and they just poof. All this means time was not on Belakor's side. This is a place of grief where it emanates and just despair glows everything. So the main battle's happening all across Dolorum, but Belakor and his personal squad of demons move into the capital, Solontum, and he has a specific destination in mind. You see, Lady Olander is out fighting demons and can't think of why anyone would attack her here. She's like, this is where I'm the most powerful. This is my home. Until a terrifying thought runs through her mind. This is not a conquering army. It's a distraction. And so, shrieking in anger, knowing there's only one thing in her city that's worth distracting her from, and that is, of course, her mortal remains. She thought that the tome which held her actual physical corpse was a secret, but it's the only reason she could conceive of that would make sense. And so she takes her Sorrow Mourn Choir, which is the new battalion in this book, and races to this sanctum where her bones are kept. She arrives just as Belakor has broken into her most precious inner chamber, and Belakor tears open the lid to her sarcophagus. Her body is like perfectly preserved as it was in life by all the crazy embalmers that they have in Shyish. He holds his blade up to the skull of the dead body, and that's when they have a conversation that I want to read to you now. "With a single blow, I might end you, spirit," hissed the first prince. The blade of shadows pulsed, bleeding pure darkness from the runes graven on its surface. Would that be a mercy, I wonder? Almost imperceptibly, something beneath the Mortarch's veil writhed and quivered. Then the fabric settled upon the ridge of her eyeless sockets once more. With a raised hand, she ordered her handmaidens to halt. Their outraged screaming was immediately silenced. "Death is inevitable," the lady whispered, her voice the scraping of glass on stone. "And my curse upon you will not end with my doom. Do as you will, abomination, and pray you can strike your blow before I turn you to ash and grave soil." She drifted towards her foe, frost blanketing the ground before her approach. Belakor smiled, his fangs ice-white in the gloom of the chamber. "You mistake me, Queen of Sorrow. I did not come here seeking your destruction. I merely required you to hear my words. A change is coming to the realms. The world of mortals is crumbling. A black clot spreads in the heart of Hysh, thanks to your own master's work. By my order, the last survivor of Marathi's insurrection has been freed, and even now brings word of her betrayal to the courts of the whelp Sigmar. It is but the dying ember of a foolish hope that keeps the dream of civilization alive. With your aid, I shall snuff out that pitiful light." Lady Olander circled the demon. The mention of hope filled her with revulsion. It was the antithesis to grief, and an emotion she despised with all her cursed being. "You wish for an alliance?" she said. If the Mortarch had been capable of humor, she would have found the thought amusingly preposterous. "But our feud is not done, creature. I remember the touch of your sword, and you, in turn, surely feel the curse I have laid upon you." "You and I are immortal," said Belakor. "What meaning does time have for creatures such as we? Our quarrel can surely wait until the doom of mortals has been decided. And I have one more thing to offer in return. Join your cause to mine, and Sigmar's champions will no longer be able to escape your master's clutches. They will soon lose what renders them eternal. For even now my armies strike at the gates between realms. When my work is done, their connection to Azir will be severed, their spirit yours to do with as you wish." Silence stretched across the sanctum of anguish for many moments. Then the Mortarch began to trace a symbol in the air with her fingers. She wove into being a spectral hourglass which loomed over the head of the Dark Master. "You have until the sand runs dry to do as you say," Olander said. And even as she spoke, the first specks of ethereal sand trickled from the upper chamber of the hourglass. Until this hour, the Legion of Grief will fight at your side, to shatter the spirits of all mortals. Then, you and I shall have our reckoning, Shadow Thing. Belakor's eyes did not even glance at the apparition above him, which now faded into nothingness. Instead, he gave a solemn bow, drew his blade away from Olander's remains. Wrapping the wings about him, he summoned a whirling vortex of umbrage magic, which yawned open in the still air of the Sanctum of Anguish. "Until we meet again, Spirit Queen," he said. Then he slipped into darkness and was gone. Now, back to me. I want to pause there for the day because this is the perfect setup for the avalanche of action that's going to happen over the next few days. And so let's talk about what is cool about this part of the story. Well, Belakor is revealed and explained in full detail. They give us a clear motivation for everything. His plan, quite frankly, is really, really great, right? And learning that he has just been setting this up for some time is awesome. Not just, blinding the Slann to his scheme, but the amount of confusion and chaos, for lack of a better word, he has sown is nuts. Right, he wants everyone to be at everyone else's throats. He exposes Morathi's betrayal by letting Van Brecht go. We learn that he's been stealing Archaon's best demons and branding them for himself, like literally binding them to his wheel to build this private army of sorts. And I think for the same reason as we talked about with like Manfred and from Broken Realms Teclis and his plans of like, if there's just utter chaos and no one knows what's happening, if you're the one cool person with a plan, you'll win every single time, right? Where Manfred wanted to see Nagash's plans fail and see Nagash fall so that maybe he can kind of take over in this vacuum of power. The same thing here is going with Belakor. If everyone is so busy dealing with other bullcrap, they'll never see his grand plan coming, and I love it. Because I can't stress enough, again, he's not like Archaon. His whole motivation for going to Lady Olander was to tie up a loose end, right? What happens if this lingering curse thing interrupts my plans later on? I can't have that. But Archaon, if he was in that same situation, he would have just killed her, right? There's absolutely no reason not to kill her. And honestly, we get the sense that crushing her physical form would banish her ghostly one, which is not really mentioned anywhere else, but we can all agree, if Archaon was there, she'd be dead, right? Like whatever thing that she didn't want to have happen would happen. But Belakor's different. He's an immortal. He can play the long game, and he likes these shadowy pacts and deals and that kind of thing. Like he plays the game in a different way. And so he's like, you know what? We can sort you and I's garbage out later. We have all the time in the world, right? We're both immortal. What's going to happen to us? Let's get rid of these annoying pests called mortals first. And hey, it'll make Nagash happy too, right? I'm doing a thing that benefits us both. And then you and I can duke it out for all eternity. I love that. And we're going to see exactly how terrifying an alliance between death and chaos can be, because Belakor's plan for attacks is described a few times as incomprehensible by mortals. You got greater demons doing hit-and-run maneuvers, Night Haunt pulling defenders into random places. It's all over the place, and that's kind of why I wanted to pause here, because for my sanity's sake, it's easier to kind of have that be one video. All in all, I loved the dialogue. I want to know your thoughts about it. For me, even though this specific video was very short and very focused, mostly obviously on Belakor, it's necessary to understand his plans for all the carnage that's about to happen. Okay, and I promise you, I will deliver on that promise because it's a great story. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think of Belakor's plan? First of all, I love the fact that they recapped in this book, like, realm gates can be destroyed. It's like, yeah, bro, they've been blowing them up since this whole setting got released. Like, from the moment they mentioned that realm gates existed, literally like the first Black Library book showed us destroying a realm gate. I'm like, that's not new news. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, so I like that plan. I love the fact that the vision, the foresight of the Seraphon was used, right? It was used in the sense of, here's how you can get rid of Eater of Tomes, but he also destroyed their prophecy machine so that they couldn't see his overarching plan. So the Seraphon had enough vision to take out a very important target, but not enough vision to know that in doing so, they're acting as a cog in a greater scheme or a greater plan. And I like that quite a bit. So for that, Belakor gets bonus points in my end. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave in the comments down below and I will chat with you there. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll catch you later. Happy wargaming.